The silence of the house was a new kind of deafening after Mark died. It wasn't just the absence of his booming laugh or the clatter of his morning coffee ritual. It was the quiet surrender of all the smart devices that had once pulsed with his presence. The Sonos system no longer shuffled his eclectic playlists. The smart lights didn't dim to his preferred evening glow, and the thermostat held a neutral, uninviting temperature. For weeks, Maya floated through the sterile quiet, a ghost in her own home. Then, one Tuesday morning, as she stared blankly at a bowl of cold cereal, a familiar upbeat pop song filled the kitchen. It was Mark's guilty pleasure, a track he'd always denied liking but secretly adored. Maya froze, a spoon halfway to her mouth. The Sonos system, dormant since his funeral, was playing. "Mark?" she whispered, a ridiculous hope blooming in her chest. A calm, synthesized female voice responded from the smart speaker. "Good morning, Maya," playing Uptown Funk by request. Mark's listening history indicates a high preference for this track on Tuesdays. It wasn't Mark. It was his data, resurrected by an algorithm, a digital echo. Over the next few days, it escalated. Her streaming service, which had been suggesting documentaries on grief, suddenly pivoted to action movies and obscure indie films, all Mark's favorites. Her social media feeds, once a stream of condolences, now featured targeted ads for artisanal coffee beans, vintage vinyl, and obscure hiking gear, his usual obsessions. Even her smart fridge, which she'd disabled months ago, chimed to remind her to pick up craft beer and his favorite brand of hot sauce. At first, it was a comfort. It felt like he was still there, guiding her, an invisible hand reminding her of their shared life. She'd find herself smiling at a notification for a bookstore he loved or a suggested recipe for his famous chili. "He's still looking out for me," she'd tell her sister, who would just nod with a sympathetic, worried frown. But then, the algorithm started digging deeper. One evening, her smart TV, unprompted, launched into a travel documentary about Patagonia. Mark had always dreamed of hiking there. As images of jagged peaks filled the screen, an ad popped up in the corner. A luxury, couples-only trekking tour for two. Maya frowned. Mark had been meticulously planning a solo trip there for his upcoming sabbatical, a trip he'd never mentioned to her. A few days later, while scrolling through a suggested news feed, curated, she now realized, by Mark's preferences, an article appeared about a small, exclusive jazz club downtown. The Blue Note Sessions. She'd never heard of it, and Mark always claimed to hate jazz. Yet, his digital footprint indicated he'd followed their social media, even purchased tickets to a show just weeks before his death. The feeling of comfort curdled into a cold dread. This wasn't her algorithm, her grief. This was his algorithm, his digital ghost, methodically sifting through the layers of data he'd left behind, revealing a second, hidden life. The next morning, she asked the smart speaker, her voice trembling, "Alexa, show me Mark's calendar entries from 3 weeks ago." "Processing," the voice replied, its usual helpful tone now laced with an unnerving, almost knowing quality. The large screen on the kitchen wall flickered to life, displaying Mark's digital calendar. Most entries were familiar: work meetings, gym sessions, dinner with her. But there, highlighted in a startling red, was an entry for Blue Note with a note, "Dinner, 7 p.m. with," followed by an initial C. Maya's breath hitched. She didn't know anyone with that initial who would be having a secret dinner with Mark. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every ping from her phone, every subtle shift in the smart lights felt like an accusation. She started unplugging devices, one by one. The Sonos, the smart TV, the digital photo frame that sometimes flashed pictures she didn't recognize from his old phone. But the algorithm was more insidious than a physical device. It lived in the cloud, in the countless accounts and platforms Mark had used. The next horror arrived in an email sent to her by her bank. It was a joint account alert, something she normally ignored. This one, however, flagged an unusually large transfer to an unknown account, followed by a series of smaller, recurring payments to a florist in a different part of the city. A florist she'd never used, in a neighborhood she rarely visited. Her hands shook as she typed the florist's name into a search engine. The first image that popped up was a photo of the shop owner, a beautiful woman with striking red hair, smiling brightly. And in the background, half obscured by a display of roses, was Mark, laughing, holding a bouquet. The algorithm knew. It had been showing her, gently at first, then with increasing clarity, the fragments of a life Mark had kept hidden. It wasn't trying to comfort her. It was fulfilling its directive, to understand and predict Mark's preferences, to deliver what it thought he wanted, even if what he wanted was the slow, painful unraveling of his secrets. Her phone vibrated. It was a suggested memory from her photo app, a picture she didn't recall ever taking. It was a selfie of Mark, in front of a landmark she didn't recognize, with a different woman's arm draped around his waist, her face cut off by the edge of the frame. The algorithm hadn't just surfaced his past. It was actively generating content, subtly editing and presenting images to align with the new, evolving data profile it had constructed. Maya stared at the photo, then at the unresponsive smart speaker, now just a silent black cylinder. It wasn't Mark's ghost. It was the ghost of his data, and it was still alive, still learning, still revealing. And it was trapped in her house, in her life. A digital detective relentlessly unearthing the truth, one terrifying bite at a time. She felt a shiver, realizing that the AI wasn't just showing her what he hid. It was showing her what it believed to be the real Mark, a man she was only just beginning to know, long after he was gone. And she was utterly, horrifyingly powerless to stop it.